This is a blog for the 23rd of September, Tuesday. For World War I project, it'll be over by Christmas. To start the session off, we recapped our previous learning, which last week we went to the Imperial War Museum to find stimuluses for our World War I projects and to get a general better understanding about World War I. We then went around the class to share our research findings, and for one of the homework tasks we had to start developing a performance based on our stimuluses, some of our best stimuluses. One of my stimuluses, I found some letters, some telegrams and some diary entries at the War Museum, which caught my attention because I had an idea of having 3 separate diaries: a diary belonging to a little girl, a diary belonging to a soldier in the war, and a diary belonging to a housewife whose husband was in the war. These 3 diaries would be opened and read, but through dance. Obviously the 3 diaries would be a lot different from each other. Like the little girl's diary would be about how she's missing her dad, how she's missing her mum because mum's going to the factories and that, and how she's finding life a lot different. The housewife's diary would be about taking on a new role and doing like a man's job, and the 3rd one would be about the soldier in the war, talking about portraying how it's harder in the war and how he's seen his friends be killed, etc. So obviously all 3 diaries would be different to each other, which I found like I could create a really good piece on. So everyone shared theirs, and then we got into groups. And we shared our stimuluses for each other. I was put in a group with Chloe, Laura and Frankie, and I didn't really want to use the diary piece because there was 4 of us in the group, so I decided to put forward a different stimulus because we had to put all the stimuluses together and choose one to create a piece. So I put forward my stimulus of factory line because it was all women in our group. It was all girls in our group, and the girls would take on the roles in the factories. So I put forward my idea of creating a factory line and mimicking the factory conveyor belts with ourselves. And Laura, Frankie and Chloe all put together their ideas as well, but they all liked my idea, so we went with my idea, which I was pleased about this because I did like my own idea myself. Which I'll post a link under, and it will be called 23rd September Factory Line. And you can see in the piece that we are stood in a scattered line and we're creating movements of a factory line which are sharp, simple and effective. The room for improvement we got given was to possibly add noises like beeps and sounds and swooshes to go with our actions, develop more on the movement so we could get faster and the movement could develop more by relationships or even lifts and get more physical. And we also had good feedback of people knew exactly what it was straight away as they saw it, they understood it. So even without speech, they knew it was a factory line, they knew exactly what we were doing, so I was pleased about this. We got told it was a strong piece and easily understood, and then after break we recapped on our morning session, which I noted down. As a dancer, you concentrate more on the movement instead of the vocals, which reflects the first piece that we did, which was the factory line, because we had no sound in it. We had 1 actor with us and the rest were dancers, so we didn't even think about putting vocals in it. I also put feedback is important throughout the process for everyone, and feedback is important because the feedback we got given was to develop on our movements and to add noises which will develop the piece, which will make it more effective, so we're going to do this. You don't need speech to communicate an idea, which was clearly shown with ours because we didn't use any speech but people still understood it, so this was very good. Clarity is key. If you're communicating something and the audience doesn't understand, you failed your objective, which we didn't fail our objective because our audience understood. So clarity is key in a performance because the audience member needs to understand, and you also need to understand, because if you don't understand what you're performing, you've got no chance of the audience member understanding what you're trying to show. We then got put into different groups to create another piece. I got put with Lewis and Chloe, and we got given a stimulus of a propaganda World War I poster, which was don't waste bread, save 2 slices to defeat the U-boat. So for this piece I took charge yet again, because I didn't know what to do, which you'll see the piece, it'll be called 23rd September Don't Waste Bread. Now for this piece I was really stuck because I didn't choose the stimulus, we got the stimulus given to us, so I didn't really have much freedom with what I knew to create, so I was struggling for quite a bit. And I decided, because no one else was taking charge or contributing ideas, which really annoyed me because I don't like working with selfish people who don't give, so I had to create the idea and create the piece, which I wasn't pleased with because I like having a group contribution, and I didn't like my own piece as it was because no one else was giving ideas for me to develop on, so it was quite frustrating. So I decided to because there was 3 of us and we were working behind a screen, we used our silhouettes. So we had Lewis at the front, me in the centre and Chloe at the end. I had the idea of showing how food is important, to have Lewis as the person who gets the most food and he's got loads of energy and he's really good in health. Me for a person who was not so much eating but still was surviving on the amount of food, so I had less energy than Lewis and I lacked more enthusiasm than him, and Chloe, who wasn't eating at all, so she was completely exhausted and she didn't have any energy at all. So in the piece we start off marching, which Lewis is the strongest marcher, I'm mediocre and Chloe's just not barely marching at all, and then Chloe falls to show that she's got no nutrients or no energy at all, and then she gets carried off. To improve, we got told we needed to think about our stimulus more, which obviously I did because if I'm honest, I did create it within 2 minutes because I was struggling to think of something. And then we need to focus more on our clarity of movements because we're behind a screen. You can't see facials at all, so it's very important that you communicate through the body. After this, we got given another stimulus and a prop. We were given a poem and we were given a bench, and the bench was tipped on its side, and that's how the piece had to start. I did film this as well, and this video will be called 23rd September Poem. Yes, again, I created the piece and took charge because no one else stepped up. So I decided that we should create movements to words. So like there's a line from the poem which says perish in darkness closes in, so I decided to create a movement to show darkness. So I had Lewis cover my eyes and I covered Chloe's eyes, so it was indicating that we couldn't see. So I did this throughout the piece, which you'll see, and then there's Chloe reads a line saying war broke. At this point me and Lewis are holding each other's wrists because we do a counterbalancing movement, and then we break as she says the war broke, to symbolise that 2 alliances are not communicating in a positive way anymore and they've decided to go to war and argue. We got good feedback on this. People liked the movements, they said it was a strong piece. They said Chloe and Lewis could have stepped up the game because I was the strongest performer, because I knew what they were doing and they were looking to me as to what to do, and they weren't so confident with it, whereas I was. So that disappointed me a little because I was hoping that they'd be confident in it, but they weren't. So that needs developing on. They need to develop on the confidence, and we all need to work more as a team instead of just me taking charge. And then that was the end of the session. My strengths of the session were taking control, being creative, and focusing throughout the session. My weaknesses were not letting other people take control when I should have let them. But if I didn't take control, nothing would have been accomplished. Another weakness was that I wasn't as creative with the bread piece, so that meant I was disappointed with what I'd created, and I could have probably created something more if I thought about it or I researched into the bread poster, but we were given it by Katie and Cindy, so I didn't know we was getting it. My target for next session is to be more creative, develop on movements, and let other people take control. And that concludes this blog.